Thank you very much, Ben, for this nice introduction and for this invitation to be with you all from far and here in the space. I'm very, very glad that I can share with you the last hour of a tremendously rich day. This last hour will be a vortex of sounds, images, sequences of films. Sometimes I talk a little bit, and I could make a lot of docking points with elements which we could experience today. So I hope that this offers you also some docking points for creative work. I will talk about transdisciplinary approach in improvisation. Site-specific works are very important to go out of the box, to go out of the room. Visual music, son icons, le son, the sound and icons. So it's visual music. I will come back. That's a kind of the core, the center of my work. And as I'm trained as a visual artist and musician composer, it's the son icons are in the center, and the music is in the center, of course. And in the center of the center, there is actually this very innovative or very stimulating space in between. We had already spaces in between. I think there is something magic. And then I'm very much interested in transdisciplinary, but also intercultural approaches and collaborations. We see some in Russian, China, and Africa. Let's make full use of the time and dive into it. The tides of the Atlantic, they come, and I'm with a viola, very cheap Irish fiddle, and I play and I sing, and the water rises and rises, and the body gets, no, the movement, I need more and more strength for the movement because the water come up and come up, but the body at the same time gets lighter. So the uplifting energy of the Atlantic, that was there was such a tension and a very uplifting energy. So this is already a dramaturgy of a performance. This is already a dramaturgy of a piece, actually. And being in the water and being immersed, so the body, of course, is an important medium in my intermedia compositions. And the body has a knowledge, the body has ideas, has an intelligence. And I'm referring very much to Jennifer Wall's The New Discipline, where the body on stage is, the musician as a human being on stage is important. Of course, on stage it's very important, but also in the act of creating. The body is a huge resource of innovation. And ideas I would not get just by thinking. So to really get into spaces, another long-term work was, I played over 10 years every summer from spring to fall in the Rhone Glacier. So, of course, improvisation is a radical practice in the moment, but I want to connect also with other dimensions of time. So, for example, you hear the droppings, the polyrhythms of the drops coming out. So this is a very short and precise time. And then here it's fall, so you have the seasons in spring. You feel like to be in a block of concrete. I mean, the ice is so stable. And in the fall, you have Yeah, you have all kinds of melting ice, hollows, and so it's a completely different body of a different concert hall. It's a body of sound, actually. And you have the seasons, but you have also the days. So in the evening, when the sun rises, goes down, then the ice expands and it gets a lot of tension, and you hear the cracking in the ice and you see it as well. So that's already an audiovisual approach. And of course, the vitriol blue is very much influencing also the creation. And literally, so this is fall, when you touch with the viola the surface of the ice, and if there is a hollow behind, so this is like an amplifying effect. So you really play with this extended body. And dimension of time, over these 10 years, the glacier retired 86 meters. But not only he retired, the surface got thinner, and sometimes there were like breaks through. So the shape of the body, the instrument, changed, and sound could disappear. And of course, this is a lake. This lake was not there at the beginning. So the whole scenery changed. That was at the beginning of this 10 years experience. And yeah, the Umwelt, the environment is a big issue for me, and I want to find other narrative. So if you hear the glacier melting, that's another very essential way of, oh wow, that it changed a lot. It's not just visually and meters, but you can hear it, you can feel it. And so this process went on and on. After these 10 years in the glacier, I had many other projects with environment. And this is a very recent one. It's a collaboration with, I worked together with glaciologists, etc., so with scientists as well. And the last one is for the Department of Foresight and Institute for Atmospheric and Climate Science. Maybe you know Reto Knuti, he's one of the main figures in Switzerland for that international exchange. And they had an international meeting in Lax. And I was exchanging with Reto Knuti, and he gave me a lot of models and curves, and I concentrated on the heat measurement data in the next station to Lax, so that's Elm, and it's from 1870 to 2020, and you see that it doesn't cool down anymore really, so it goes up and up and up and up. And I made two compositions. I mean, comprovisations, actually. There was always a lot of space to improvise. One was when we continue, as we are continuing now, and if we are not really in resonance with the Umwelt, with nature, so it was a lot about relation it was a duo between a drummer and myself. And in my improvisation or composition stimuli, I have sonicons, but also it needs something to coordinate. So I developed the so-called interaction notation, where you focus on the interaction between or stimulate different types of interactions. And here, for example, you have the sign not listening. So it's all about relationships, which you can also that was a narrative of not taking care of each other. And then the second one was the same curves, but you were in resonance with the nature and the planet. And Hartmut Rosa defines or says, Hartmut Rosa is a German sociologist, resonance. What is that? It's not a feeling, but a mode of relating. And this is what, via music, you can so well express or to find a shape that they really get into resonance. That's what we want. And resonance can happen. It's arbitrary, so you can never be sure if resonance happens or not. But resonance is that you listen to the others and answer with your own voice. So then it needs always two, that resonance can happen. A resonance string needs two endings, and it needs two forces, two different forces to hold the string that it can vibrate. So this was a scientific congress, and I think art, and especially improvisation, or improvisation with graphic scores, or with a kind of a free, relatively free interaction notation, can give another narrative to, of course, the scientific data, which are very important. And now I was talking about sonicon. What is that actually? So actually sonicons can be, visual music can be also branches of a tree, which are for me, oh, that's a structure, that starts to sound in my imagination. Or what happens very often, that I imagine, or I have a premonition of a energetic music sound, something, and then I do drawings on half-transparent paper with both hands. Why with both hands? Music is about communication. We communicate with the whole body. We communicate with gestures, we saw today already, and we play with both hands. When we talk, we talk also with the hands. So I draw with both hands and several pencils in the hand. And it's about consciousness as well. So Marshall McLuhan says the medium is the message. Yes, with music, you get a huge realm of feelings, of information. But with the visual art, you get another perspective. And that interests me a lot to deepen the music, to look the music from underneath, to look the music from different perspectives. These are sounds, visual sounds for me. So it's not sounding, but it's actually imagination and then finding a shape. And I want to touch the music. Transparency is so important in music, and it's, for example, the transfer from one discipline to the other. How can you paint transparency? That was a big issue for me, because in music it's so important. And then I found a technique. I do paint the sonicons on half-transparent paper. It's like a skin, actually. And I found techniques to paint on both sides with different oils and lacquer, so that you can reach different shades of transparency. So it stimulates the music and the visual art and vice versa. And of course, music is a time-based art, but also visual art is time-based. So I wanted to slow down the process of drawing. The drawing can go almost in real time to my imagination of music, but oil painting lasts sometime 6 weeks and it's still wet. So, and I paint in many layers, so the score takes time. And it takes time to, I can reflect and look at the whole structure of the piece. And I like to slow down the process of improvising and to get again, to see it again and to play again with it, or to make layers, or even to have scores on a foil and it's swimming in the water, so that it overlaps always differently. Mix sculptures or whole installations. And of course I play them. And as you see, it's not on a music stand, but I have to move to play these long stripes of paper. Sometimes they are, the longest one was 86 meters. You can, of course, guess why. Yeah, on the slipway you saw in Ireland, I went into the water, but also the score went into the water. So I had a month's residency there, and during the low tide, I was doing the drawing, and then the Atlantic came and washed away some of the traces of the graphite and red shark. And it was like a palimpsest, so it washes away the traces, and then I did new ones, and you can see here one part of the score which went into the Atlantic as well. And if you have, I mean, this is a score for me. I move around in this score. And at the same time, this is the Berliner Festspielhaus, and that's Märzmusik. I played at the festival, but during the day it was open. It was an exhibition. So Sonicons are actually hybrids between visual art, which can be autonomous, and room scores. Yeah, I want to make a jump. And in a room installation, I choreograph how I move in the space. For example, sometimes the overview is important, and then the sound travels in another way. Or sometimes I go very close to the Sonicons that my eyesight is like blurred, and that makes also part of the approach. And of course, you have also to choreograph the audience so that they're in good spaces and can see and hear. And I say it's what I'm as a composer, I'm also a director. So if I work with musicians, who is moving to which place, I do not a choreography, but a how I name it, choreophony. So it's actually moving sounds, moving musicians. And you saw that I turned around the Sonicons. And one reason because I turn around Sonicons is because they are on half-transparent papers, and you can see them from both sides. And of course you can, if you have a paper, you can, and you have a motif, a visual motif, you can turn it, you can mirror it, retrograde inversion. The notes, the staff notation is just as an analogy, so you don't have to play what is written here. It's just the shape. And of course it has some historical references to Johann Sebastian Bach and Arnold Schönberg, the composition technique. And it's actually a visual version with the roots of these composition methods. Yeah, see the sounds, turn the sound around, see the sounds from down. At the performance, you had this stripe of paper in the middle of the room, so you can also look from underneath. And then if you look, you move, and then you sing up. So the whole, let's say, the whole three-dimensional sound diffusion is also very strong. So you have the room score, but also sounds moving in the space. Yeah, and now I was a lot talking about solos, and I love to play solo and to improvise solo, but I always like to find stimulating settings to dialogue with. Site-specific settings or room scores. And I was in London, and when I had a residency, and in my studio I had a lot of Sonicons everywhere, and then I had a duo with John Edwards, the wonderful double bass player, and we wanted to play duo. So he came in my studio, warmed up a bit, and then he was just playing 3/4 of an hour, and suddenly he told me, "Oh, I'm sorry, we wanted to play duo. I was completely immersed in your Sonicons." And that was actually my initiation that Sonicons could be inspiring for other people. That was in the year 2000. And 10 years later, I got a commission from the Lucerne Festival Academy. That's an orchestra, the orchestra Pierre Boulez founded. And you see the musicians have Sonicons on their music stand. They get coaching how to read the Sonicon. So sometimes some musicians, they have an approach through the theory. Johann Sebastian Bach, Schönberg, oh yeah, that's a visual version of that technique. Others, they are very much into the drawing movements, and especially this tuba player who doesn't move so much while playing his instrument, or at least not external movements. He was extremely inspired by the big movements of the drawing, and he imagined the movements, and he played differently after that. So, and here you have the same motif turned, so you can turn. I have two different coordinations for Sonicons. So you saw the interaction notation, that's one interface. The Sonicons, they need sometimes a guidance, how people move or interact with the Sonicon. And here I have conduction. Butch Morris, this conduction, the New York composer, improviser, and you have here in London, the London Improvisers Orchestra, and they developed since 1998 this conduction much substantially further. And as a member of the London Improvisers Orchestra, I really appreciate how they developed this further for mature musician and creative musician. So it's not conduction just a central perspective, but it stimulates some situations to go beyond what you would do maybe in free improvisation. So it's another approach. And turn your sonicon is the sign that musicians turn their sonicons. So they play the same sonicon in different versions. And I would like to, I always want to stimulate to go deeper into the material. And you have the accuracy of, and the energy and the shape of the sonicon, but it's completely different, but still the same shape. So they play, they have many different versions. And to organize the thing, so you have groups, the Atlantic Quartet, Body of Sound Quintet, and if a signal sonicon appears on a screen, then the whole group plays. So there is a certain structure. And the piece, Nachtblasmen, is 42 minutes approximately, has 3 parts. In the first part, it's quite conventional. First violin, second viola, cello, brass, etc. And central perspective of a conductor. I was conducting, but then in the middle, the piece, the name is Nachtblasmen, they go into the night. The conductor disappears and a video score appears. And the third part is still with the video score and the conductor. So they have actually 2 conductors. One, a freer one with the sonicons, and then the conductor who want to get power back to a kind of day consciousness. So it's structured at the same time. It's also quite often, I always want to work with the resources of the musician, and they were incredibly good young players from 5 continents, and it was extremely interesting to work with their also intercultural interpretation. Sonicons can also go digital, so we have with Max MSP, it's a live mixing of the different sonicons. So the mixing is also live, improvised. So you see that the score is 4 and on 12 meters, so the audience can also see the score. I have afterwards, I can show you a video. And just a thought about the interdisciplinary work. So that was a collaboration at the orchestra piece and solo pieces at the Lucerne Festival, which is one of the very important classical festival. And it's a collaboration with the Kunstmuseum Luzern, the Museum of Art in Lucerne. So I like to connect institutions as well. So you see here, that's the conduction signs of this, yeah. And so daytime. a lot of new, not new signs, but new combinations. So it's logical that not everything is clear, but I think we clarified the signs, the combination of signs. It can get really complex, I know. Yeah, so first part until the video score comes. So Sonicon samples, Sonicon solos, it's all connected. You imitate this person, crossfade. I go further, I'm sorry, so night. Conductor is away, just the Sonicons are conducting. If the musician recover a line of their Sonicon, they play. So the lines were mixed in that sequence. That's a signal Sonicon. So another group plays. And you can still see some traces of water, so this core has been made in the Atlantic. If a group plays, they stand up, and that's wonderful that you have two different layers of sound: the people sitting and then the people standing up. So a kind of a scenography is also even in the orchestra piece. Another signal Sonicon, another group. And now it gets daytime. Transition, conductor comes, the video score transformed in inversion, and this double direction. And it's very impressive. This cello player told me when I made the solo performance for them, oh, I will never play on my cello like that. And after actually 6 rehearsals, and I always give individual coaching, that was in her, so it just had to come out. Yeah, it's quite a crew, live mixing, the whole orchestra. They are great. Oh, that's wrong. I hope I did copy the right thing. Yes. Yeah, the title of the piece was Nachtplasmen. But also, how do I get to the content of the Sonicons? How does that happen? And I often do quite a lot of artistic research to get into a topic. I thought, oh, nocturnes, we had a lot of nocturnes already, so I tried to find something which interests me and might be interesting for other people as well. So I came to insomnia, to sleep deprivation. I mean, Louise Bourgeois, and there is a big culture of insomnia drawings by Louise Bourgeois, and insomnia is a big team in visual art as well. So I wanted to, how can I approach that? And I was very interested in finding the blind spot or approaching the blind spot of the night when I normally sleep. I mean, I'm a night person and I work until late in the night, but then maybe 3, then I go to bed. And what happens then if I just don't go to bed and continue working? And I was talking with a sleep researcher, and he told me, oh yeah, I'm interested in that topic. And so I was preparing some months with him, and I could do an experiment of 40 hours of sleep deprivation in the sleep laboratory with measurements and everything. And why 40 hours? Because I wanted to be alone, no assistance, no stimulation. I wanted to just doing drawing, singing and playing viola, and always leave a trace, an artistic trace some way. And 40 hours, it's the maximum length you can do. You have to do some medical and psychological tests, but this was it. So I had an emergency button, but I knew after 40 hours, that's it, what I can do. And I made other measurements. Oh yeah, and here, you see, after 20 hours, actually the activity was incredibly high, so that it goes from left to right, and the extremes actually come quite after the normal timing we would be awake. It doesn't say that it's better, but it's definitely intense, and it's another quality. And also the memory, you can absolutely memorize, oh, what did I do 17 hours ago? So it's another dimension of time and memory, and I thought also, oh, I will not be able to sing anymore after 40 hours. But no, the opposite happened. I could reach the high notes without difficulties. And then I asked the sleep researcher why, and then he told me, yeah, this is such an extra. The body is in the condition of fear, of I have to run away, I have to make myself audible, and the high pitch is something you can keep or even stimulate much more. You can sing much higher than normally if you have a lot of fear. And then it took me actually almost 3 years to train my voice. I knew my voice can do these high notes, and so I trained. And after 3 years, I found a new register in my voice. And measurements over 3 months. And this was in the art museum. This was an installation. It was a normal exhibition, about 3 months during the day. People could see the exhibition. And in the night, for the festival, we made almost 20 shows. So this was, you can imagine the light is changing as well. So we had light rhythms, and people, for example, the London Stellaris String Quartet with Phil Waxman, Marcio Matos, John Edwards, and myself played in here, and they moved around. And also what I love is that if you have a sonicon in between, you can stimulate the person to be very, very close, so close you normally wouldn't be. Maybe in the film, yes, you were very close as well. But so you can stimulate extreme situations and interactions. And the sleep deprivation to get the discontent was one way of finding new shapes or the appropriate shapes for the sonicon. Then I had a commission from the Moscow Contemporary Music Ensemble, and they told me, you know, we played together, I think, 30th year, and we are not really improvising. What can you do? Can you offer us something? And then I thought, they're fantastic musicians, but how to stimulate them to go into improvisation in a kind of a quick way that they are satisfied. And then I thought, what are their resources? And I met a phonetic professor, and she told me that in Russia you have one sign which means that a consonant is spoken softer or sharper. So already a resource for Russian people is very much that they have a special ear and also a special pronunciation technique to have all these shadows of sharp and soft and everything in between. So I thought that's an interesting approach. And she made the sounds, and I was drawing the mouth, the dramaturgy in the mouth, and I'm super interested in the mouth as transitory space of the outside and the inside. So this space, the mouth, is like something in between. And it's highly dramatic what happens when I talk. What happens, sometimes it's closed, sometimes you can feel how the airstream changes when you speak. I mean, this is an extreme energy. And what you do with the tongue, this is, if you imagine this space inside. So I was actually drawing the space inside with different blah, e, z, with the tongue. So the red is the vibration, and the graphite is more the shape of the cavity of the mouth. So this sharp is a German overtones, ooh, l. You see that the air goes on two sides of the tongue. And I had also, of course, here a lot of mouth shapes, and you see, of course, you can make combinations, and so the composition starts to get shape. And then I studied only Russian and German. Then I did that composition during a residency at Civitella Ranieri International Fellowship, and we were 18 persons, and we all speak English with each other. But then I heard somebody speaks Korean, Amharic, Chinese, Venezian, Italian dialect, and on and on. And I realized that we speak actually 13 different languages. And I was very interested in that, and especially also I like to connect with other dimensions of time. With the glacier already, sleep research is also a kind of an experiment with time. So I asked these fellows, I made individual sessions, that they talk to somebody who left the planet. they can talk or sing in their mother tongue. And to have a kind of safe space, they had a sheet on top of their head, and they were acoustically kind of connected with the outside, but still they had their inner space. And I was the guardian that they have half an hour, a safe place to do it, and I could do the recording. Here in the chapel, here the microphone, a moving microphone, here in the hidden garden. They could choose their favorite place in the castle.
엄마, 은경이다. 오랜만이지? 왜 어떻게 어머니의 생각을 이렇게 오래
So you see here two studios. The long one is my studio at the Civiltà Ranieri, and I got the floor plan and the plans of the Moscow audiovisual museum, and it was 11 meters of height. So I thought, I would like to make a score which goes in the middle through the whole building. So I made an 11-meter score. And on the right side, you see in my studio in Zurich the sketches of mouth shape sketches. And I filmed it. It goes digital. I made an animation. So Sonicons are analog and digital very often. The composition takes shape. I focused on some special, moments there, and we made a musical research. And that's the museum. So you have a video score, you have a score hanging, and all the arbitrary moments like an escalator moving, and with an interaction notation, I integrated all these qualities. And the Sonicons, they are floating in the air. They also move with the air flow in the whole building. So actually the whole building becomes music, becomes an instrument. And that's the interaction notation. On the top you see the symbols of the score. And there is no conductor, so the yellow sequences, this is the person who gives the entrance, so the responsibility is spread. Every musician has a responsibility. I will not show the whole video because you can see it on my website, but just some two short sequences. Musicians were in the escalator and were coming and moving. And also the movement, they have little loudspeaker in the hand. So if you move, you have a kind of a three-dimensional sound diffusion. And the 7 musicians, they came and they had already sounds and moved. So the 3-dimensional sound diffusion is a big passion. Yes. And of course, you can turn the Sonicons, the analog Sonicons you can turn. But with video animation, you can also move, if the Sonicons come from left to right or from right to left. It's also interculturally, it's a very different approach. If people, I mean, Western people normally read from left to right, but it's very interesting to confront people with different cultural background with these different directions. Or a score goes up. And you know Lucas Nickley? Yeah. And I animated the score. You see, there is a breathing animation, so I wanted to create a score that breathes. Yeah, and we go to another chapter. We leave Russia and go to Africa. This is also, so that's the collaboration with a South African dance company. And there is also a story behind. So it started in the Swiss Alps. I saw these sources, these springs, and I saw the colors. And I thought, how does that happen? I never saw a spring with those extreme colors. And I collaborated with a hydrogeologist. I mean, he's a scientist, but also he's a diviner. He can find sources, so has a very kind of large knowledge about the ground and the springs. And yeah, I wanted to, of course, record the strings. They make a sound. But this didn't work because it was in spring and the melting water was so loud of the river Inn that I could not hear the single springs. So I was just looking at them and I was drawing the rhythms of the spring. And you can imagine they're very different rhythms. So I asked, sometimes it's like a geyser, the water really comes out with lots of energy of the earth. And sometimes it's just a little water coming out of a mossy hole. Yeah. And then I asked the hydrogeologist, why is it like that? And then he told me, look, you stand on African ground. Okay. Of course, we know about the continental drift, but we have in the Swiss Alps, it goes from St. Moritz until Innsbruck in Austria. It's a special geological window. And I say window because the surface is very porous there. So the water can come out very easily. And if the water comes through African earth, which is much more porous, so it gives much more energy, and our stone in the granite and the hard stone, so it gives another power, and I did here the drawings, rhythms of the springs. And here, the rhythms of the springs come to Africa. Why? I mean, the continental drift, the Eurasian and the African continent, they were really intertwined. And And those springs can only happen because of the continental drift. So I wanted to bring these silent visual rhythms to Africa. And PJ Sebacha, he was very intrigued about engaging a composer, and that I bring not music, but silent music. You can imagine, normally if you have rhythm in music, that gives also very often a rhythm to the dancer. But I brought silent rhythms. And so the 5 dancers could interpret the Sonicons in their own rhythm. So we had actually 5 different rhythms. And yeah, at the beginning it was not so easy. When I came very excited with the Sonicons, then the dancers, they thought, no, this is abstract art. We don't feel it. And then, okay. And in the third day, Fana Tsabalala, he made a warm-up, and I was there. I was also doing the warm-up, and I saw he got it. He is in the rhythm. And then when he was in the rhythm, the others came as well, and then I told them the story about the springs, and that they met actually already in Switzerland, and we went to Sturk Fountain Caves and Sedwala Caves, so very strong springs in South Africa. And a year later, I came back and brought those new Sonicon. So that's the first year. So how about the time? Can we, how is it about?
I don't know what time it is.
It's 4:45.
We're running on a little.
I know.
How much did you want to show some of the dance?
Some of the dance, yeah. Is okay?
Yeah.
So it's just 1 hour.
This collaboration between myself, Charlotte Hug, and dancers from the Forgotten Angle Theatre Collaborative was initiated in 2014 when the Forgotten Angle was hosting Charlotte as an artist in residence. In 2014 we started with what we call Found Amongst Translations, which is inspired by our relationships, our interactions, by Charlotte's beautiful and very moving and evocative Sonicons and her music. And then we developed it into what we now call Siaba, Found Amongst Translations. Siaba meaning inherit, to steal, to relocate, to share. So we've now developed it into a far more finely tuned exploration of relationships, of translation, of interpretation, of conducting, of who is leading who, of who is composing who. Is the musician and vocalist composing the dancers and choreographing the dancers? Is the dancer choreographing the artwork? Is the artwork choreographing the musician? And all the kind of many layers of relationship that kind of unfold and unravel out of that series of translations. And so, although it's framed in a certain way, we are really discovering the delicacies and the intricacies of every single space. Because Charlotte's icons are inspired by nature, by natural things, whether it's breath, whether it's spine, whether it's lungs, whether it's air, whether it's soil, springs,
Yeah,
yes, all sorts. We decided to go into those spaces, to go to natural spaces where we could observe water, where we could observe air, where we could listen, where we could see, and where we could feel. Caves were very powerful in their representation of time.
Experience in the cave was really, really deep in the Cebuala caves, and what I found there so really touching, that all the dancers and myself, we made our own artistic translation already there. So we experienced the same space, but it's translating in 5 different ways. And I think that's the magic of the translation. For me, this cave was the oldest composition I've ever played. So it's 2 billion years old, and I played really every detail of the cave, and I found really connected with a completely other dimension of time.
So there we were at night, locked in the caves by ourselves for 3 hours, and Charlotte was playing the caves, interpreting the caves, and the guys were overwhelmed by ancestral stuff and became quite immobile.
Yeah, until here. We went on tour, and this journey goes on, and I hope, yeah, your inspiration goes on. And thank you very, very much for sharing this moment. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
I know we're conscious that we're running out of time and that we have to close at some stage. Were there any questions that came in?
A couple of questions came in about the previous thing.
About the previous thing. Well, we'll hold that for the Q&A, if we may. And
I have a question.
great.
It's just regarding, I was very interested to hear what you said about the cellist and her transformation in Lucerne.
Yes.
Yes. Because I think we all know as musicians and involved in improvisation and contemporary music that, orchestras are traditionally very resistant and made up of maybe very brilliant but very conservative musicians. And I was incredibly struck by the fact that all of those people were absolutely immersed in what they were doing. They were not self-conscious in any way, or so it seemed on your film. And I wondered what your experiences were with that. Had you found any resistance, and did you have to overcome it, and how you went about that?
Yeah, there was a lot of resistance, and the first resistance came actually a very critical one and a very interesting exchange with Pierre Boulez. He is not so interested in improvisation. And I explained him with the Sonicons, with the conducting, with interaction notation. And then after 1.5 years of exchange, then I could work with his orchestra. And he came and was listening to the I mean, he supported it very much. And that had, of course, also a big influence on the young musician. That's one, that he supported. And the other thing is I played a solo, and they found out, and I told them, you know, I play this technique of my viola of 1763, so I love my instrument. It doesn't hurt the instrument. And I'm classically trained, but I want to go beyond. And then with the individual coaching, I think it was, they wanted to make something good. And they found out, they trusted me that I'm aware of quality, and then that I want to work with them and to get the music together, which is a lot prepared, but for the unprepared.
That's very interesting. I think that you must have gained their trust very quickly. Too. And I wondered also about the Sonicons, the scale of them, the majesty of them, the beauty of them, if that also drew them in, that it was such an event in a sense?
Yeah, I mean, they could go during daytime to the museum and just be in the score and get into touch in their own rhythm. And I was there. I was living in Lucerne, so they travel to Lucerne from 5 continents, and they are very committed. Yeah.
Any other questions? No. Well, I just want to say one thing that I've been quite taken by today. I get the feeling that, well, I kind of believe that we live in a world which is completely dominated by words and by numbers. That's the physical nature of the world that we live in. And then this rational word of the logos. And we completely are entrapped within this world. And I just want to say that today my mind has been blown completely, and I'm in this business, by all the amazing performances and thoughts that we've been sharing. And it goes back to what I said at the beginning, that I feel that we're on the cusp of a new way of thinking about how to live, which is beyond I hate to get political, but it's beyond the late capitalist moment, which I think is choking us all. And, there are other ways to see the world, other ways to share what we have inside. And I think today was an amazing demonstration of how not to live in the world that we're in. And it's very hard to get away from the politics of this. But I think I just have this feeling that what we're doing here is really important. So I want to thank everybody. You know who you are. I don't need to go through the list, okay? But I've had amazing experiences today, playing with this Scorched Earth, playing with Alessia, into that place that what happens, I don't know what happens, but you're brought in, seeing the beautiful film again after so many years. And I'm sure everybody's had their own wonderful experience. I am so delighted that Charlotte Hug has come to grace us with her presence and your wonderful ideas. And you're right there on the edge, and we're all trying to follow you. I think it's quite amazing. I want to thank the crew again. I've mentioned all your names earlier, but without you guys, this couldn't happen. And I'm really, really grateful for that. We start again tomorrow, I believe, at 10 o'clock. Have a look at your brochures, get excited. We need to take a break, I think. We've been overwhelmed with so many ideas. But I want to thank the viewers. Tune in tomorrow. We're going to have another wonderful day. And We'll try not get political tomorrow, but we probably will anyway. Okay, so I officially draw this session to an end. I want to thank everybody, and we'll see you 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.